everybody?
Great. I can hear you perfectly fine, so I imagine everyone else can hear you fine too. So yes, the floor. Just before you start, I'll just say next up after you is we have Role Play for Lovers with Master Peter, who has been in and out of this channel. So yeah, after this, there's a connection as a couple between two people. So yeah, Jamie, over to you.
Great, thank you, Adam. I appreciate it. So changing gears just a bit from nature connection to self connection. It's quite interesting speaking to you all because I'm not seeing very many faces. It would be so lovely if I could see some faces to say hello to, so I'm not just speaking at my my screen. So thank you for those. Thank you, the Slossons, for the wave. Yeah, it'd be lovely to see some of your faces. So if you'd like, it'd be great if you wanted to turn your camera on for just even a moment to say hello. Thank you. Oh, we've got two sets of Slossons. Yeah. Oh, yay. Thank you, everybody. I'm loving the waves. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm feeling great about that. So, and the thumbs up. All right. So just to tell you a little bit about me before I launch into the erotic blueprints, my name is Jamie, and I'm a sexuality and intimacy coach, and I specialize in embodiment and embodied practices. And I'm interested to know, for those that are here, how many of you have heard of the erotic blueprint? So you can either give me a thumbs up, you can put your hands up, you can put it in the chat. I think you can even do thumbs up in the chat nowadays. I think Zoom is, gone all cool with emojis. So I would just out of curiosity, all right. And how many of you are here because you're really interested in how to have a deeper sexual connection? To give me a thumbs up or a wave, or are you just here because it's the Connection Festival and it's just like, yeah, this is cool, this is on, which is fine too. That's great. Okay. All right. So what I specialize in with my coaching is it's what's called the erotic blueprints. And the erotic blueprints are very similar to, say, the 5 love languages. Have many of you heard of the 5 love languages? So again, you give me a thumbs up or a little wave if that's something that you've heard of. Yes. Okay. So the erotic blueprints it's a typing system for our arousal, and it's looking at how we are wired for pleasure. So everybody is wired differently for pleasure. And this might explain why sometimes couples say, we're just not matched. They want sex all the time and I never want sex, or they just want to kiss and cuddle and I just want to get straight down to the orgasm. So it's not that people are not compatible, they're just not speaking the same erotic language. And so it works on that same premise, the 5 love languages, and there are 5 erotic blueprints. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about the erotic blueprints, and then we can get into the nitty-gritty and how that might apply to you. And this will also feed really nicely into Master Peter's session, and maybe explain a little bit why some people are more drawn to what he's doing than other people. And it's not because any of us are broken or weird or odd. We just have different ways that we are wired for pleasure. So now, how we're wired for pleasure, this can come about in lots of different ways. It could be the way we were raised, sometimes religious beliefs or the way that things are how we're raised in a family will affect the way we are wired. Sometimes we're just born that way, it happens. Sometimes it's a combination of all these things. And again, there's no right or wrong way. It's just something to use to help us understand ourselves better. And by understanding ourselves better, we can then understand our partners better, creating deeper connection. Okay, so the 5 erotic blueprints. So there are 5 of them, and I'm going to make this a little bit interactive because I really like to make things interactive, and I know there's only some of you with your cameras on, and that's great. So if you don't want to put your camera on, that's fine, but if you want to put in the chat, so every time something that I say resonates with you, you can give me jazz hands because I'm American and I like jazz hands, or you can just give a thumbs up. Or if it doesn't resonate, you can give it a thumbs down and see how we go. Okay, so the 5 erotic blueprints. So there are 5. I'm going to name each one and then I'll describe them. And I want you to see which camp you feel like you might sit in, okay? So there's energetic, there's sensual, there's sexual, there's kinky, and there's shapeshifter. So those are the 5. So generally speaking, each person have a primary blueprint. They have a primary way of relating to how they are wired for pleasure. Okay, so they have this primary one, usually with a secondary one, and that's not to say like this is all set in stone in any way, shape, or form. Okay, so if this resonates with you, are you a person who likes space, tease, and anticipation? Space, tease, and anticipation as a turn on. And I'm seeing a few nods. I'm seeing a few, maybe, depends, contextual. Okay, so space, tease, and anticipation. Okay, all right, that's one. Okay, the second is that you love all of your senses to be ignited. You want like the juice from the mango dripping down you. You want to be lathered in massage oil. I see a few people laughing. Okay, yes, okay, maybe that's resonating. Great. Okay, so if you're that person, or maybe you just want nudity, genitals, penetration, orgasm. Okay, so if that's you, that's okay too. I'm seeing, no, okay, no, okay. All right. What about maybe you like to play the edge? Maybe you'd like to have some power dynamics. Maybe you like to be told exactly what to do or not to do, or you like to be the one telling. Or maybe you really like quite strong sensation. Resonate with anybody? Meh. Okay. Or all of it. I want it all. I need it all. I can't get enough. I want this. I want that. I want the whole package. Give it to me. I'm eating it all for lunch. Okay. Okay. I've seen some thumbs up for that one. Okay. So if you haven't worked these little pieces, and I'm just giving you little pieces, and I'll fill in the blanks a little bit more now, please. No sex, please. You're British. Well, you'll survive. We're all here because somebody had an orgasm. Somebody, okay?
I was joking.
Hopefully both people did, but anyway. Okay, so if you're the type who likes space, tease, and anticipation, that's energetic. And what is meant by energetic is energetics tend to be really quite sensitive. Okay, so they're the kind that can kind of notice and sense what's happening for a partner even before their partner tells them. They have like these emotional antenna and they pick it all up. Okay, and the energetic, one of the beautiful superpowers of an energetic is they're the kind of partner or lover that can have orgasm without touch. Like they can have eye orgasms. You know, maybe you've heard of people who have eye orgasms and they look into each other's eyes and they're in ecstatic places, and they can easily be transported into altered states of reality through sex. Now, one of the sort of the shadow sides of an energetic is that they short circuit very easily. So if they don't have that space, tease, and anticipation, if you go straight to their genitals, they're going to short circuit and they're just like, whoa, like I'm not aroused anymore. It just takes them straight out. Okay, so that's an energetic. Okay, now the sensual was the one I was like, oh, lather me up. I need massage. I need touch. They like contouring touch. They want all of their senses fed. They have the capacity to feel great amount of pleasure through their body. And sort of the shadow side, one of the shadow sides of a sensual is that they often get stuck in their head because they're so sensory based that they can get stuck in their head. And I don't know if any of you have ever had a lover, or maybe this is you, or maybe a partner, but they get so stuck in their head that everything is perfect. Like the candles are just right, the music is just right, but there's some dirty fucking socks on the floor and they can't engage with you sexually because there's dirty socks on the floor. Who left the dirty socks? And that's where they get stuck. So that would be essential. They get stuck in their head, and they can often sometimes feel like they're taking too long. They're taking too long, whatever that means. So that's a sensual. Now, the sexual is sort of the most, I'd say the simplest of them, because they can have a very limited definition of what sex is, because they like nudity, they like orgasms, and they like penetration, regardless if you're male or female. That's what they love. And they can go from 0 to 60 very quickly. They're always up for it. And they're a lot of fun to play with. Now, the shadow side to the sexual is that they can have that limited definition of what sex is. And they can also get so genital focused, they forget the rest of the body. They forget the rest of the body has all these wonderful erogenous zones. And just to put this in context with the sensual and the sexual, society and culture says all women are sensual and all men are sexual. And I'm here to tell you that is not true. There are a lot of men who are not sexual and can't be turned on unless they have that space, tease, anticipation, or they need things to be more in the sensual realm or one of the other realms. So, women are not strictly sensual and men are not strictly sexual. Okay, and then there's the kinky. Okay, so kinky, there are two types of kink, and maybe Master Peter can relate to this. So there are two types of kink. There's psychological and physical. You can be one or both. Now, the psychological kink is going to be that power play. When you think about submission and domination, that's the power play. And then the psychological kink is going to be more of the sensation-based. Maybe you've seen like floggers and ropes and paddles and the little rollers that look like they're for like cutting pastry and all sorts of stuff. So that would be the physical. And so with the kinks have a huge sexual vocabulary because their route to turn on can be many things. It doesn't have to be strictly with the genitals or even, with the body, it can be up here in the head. And with the kink, they're often the ones that are most likely to be in the shadow of shame because a lot of people don't understand kink. And by the way, when I'm talking about the erotic blueprints and kinky, I'm not talking about BDSM. That's something different. It can factor into the kinky blueprint, but it's something different. So just to put those two aside. But yeah, kinkies also have an amazing capacity for communication because they're often enjoying and relishing things that most people don't even think to consider. So that's the kink. And then the shapeshifter, they're the ones who want it all. They can't get enough of it. There's nothing that's sort of off limits in a lot of ways. They have the vocabulary of all of the blueprints. They can play in all of them, or they can have the shadow of them all. So each blueprint has superpower and each one has shadow. And, with a shapeshifter, they like lots of variety. They like to have lots of different kinds of touch. And the thing with the shapeshifter is that they're the most starved. So if we think about being fed in our sexuality, they're one of the most starved simply because that if they're with a partner who only plays in one blueprint, they'll always stay there and they're not being fed in any of the other blueprints. So that's a real challenge for a shapeshifter. They can also never truly understand their own sexuality because they're always shifting for everyone else's sexuality. So sometimes having a shapeshifter as a lover or a partner can be a little frustrating because their route to turn on can change from day to day. Okay, so that's sort of the erotic blueprints in like the fastest gist that I could possibly wrap it all up in. And can you all understand how understanding these different aspects, how that might relate to how you may have in the past maybe misrelated or related really well to certain partners in your life? Can you have a sense of maybe where some of your partners were, where you were, how you feel? And the importance of being able to recognize these within ourselves, because oftentimes, like low libido and all of these different things that come up for people sexually are oftentimes we're just not really looking at how are we wired for pleasure? What is it that we need? What is it that truly feeds us? Make sense? So any questions about any of those, as I like I said, I've just breezed through them. Okay, so I just had I just had a question here. And what's the shadow side to kinky? So shadow side to kinky can be a few different things. One is shame. So shame is a huge one for the kinks. Another shadow to a kink is that if they're into fetish of some variety, that fetish can be their only route to turn on. And then that becomes a problem. If that's the only way that they can get turned on, aroused, and orgasm, then that's a big one. But those are the two biggest for kink. Thank you for asking.
Any more questions, guys? We've got about 5 minutes left. I know your Jamie, your website, academyforintimacy.com, which everyone obviously free to go to, and I can ask questions. She's on Instagram as well. If you check the channels page, then all the details are on there. There is also a thing called eroticblueprint.com where you can actually do a test to kind of...
Yeah, I also have the quiz. I have a quiz on my website. I have a quiz linked to my Facebook. I have a quiz linked to my Instagram as well. You can go on and you can take the quiz for yourself. And, you know, there's a series of questions and kind of feel into which one. And so I also want to just quickly note that everything I've just told you was very head-based. So a lot of you may have identified with, oh, she's saying this. Oh yeah, I can see myself there. So with the erotic blueprints, there's a somatic piece to it. So we don't just look at what our head says about how we feel about these things. We actually test it within the body, because there's a touch and a sensation for each of the blueprints. And so it's important to see that what our head says matches what our body is saying.
Yeah, I can highly recommend doing that that test. It's much like the language for language of love, or the different ones. Once you have them and you know them, you can very much like connecting with yourself, which is obviously very important, and you understand yourself better, so it gives you more confidence. But when you're communicating with your partner, to be able to like communicate in the language that they speak or you speak or whatever it might be, it's amazing. It like unlocks doors. And you know, to be honest, who doesn't want to have better connection through physical contact with whoever they want to have physical contact with? So that's amazing. That's great. Is there does anyone else have any questions? I've got my mum and dad staring back at me, so it's it feels a bit odd. But does anyone else have any questions to so if you relate to 4 or 5, you're not. If you relate to, so I've got a question about it. Says, if you relate to 4, because it came to me, I'm not sure if it went to me or because it actually, if you relate to 4 or 5, are you likely a shapeshifter?
It's a possibility. So if you felt like, oh, I'm a piece of each of these, you could be a shapeshifter. You could be. But like I said, going through and actually having the test, doing the actual head test, and then somatically checking, what is my body saying? Do I actually respond to the sensual touch the way I think I respond to the sensual touch?
Round of applause to everybody.
Vulnerability is a muscle. The more you use it, the more you practice it, the easier it becomes.